I there we go. All right. Well, I'm going to be honest. Grew up here in South Carolina and on my family's farm, originally from the Low Country. I don't know if a lot of you have ever heard about Gullah Geechee people here in South Carolina on the coast of Charleston. I was born in Charleston, but raised in Walterboro by way of Columbia, South Carolina. So my grandparents ran their own farm. My mother was the daughter of farmers and farmed most of her life. But anyway, I was never really, I used to love playing in the dirt there. Right now, it's a little over 1,000 acres that my family owns here in South Carolina and farms. But I love playing in the dirt there with plant seeds in random places and ditches and things like that. And never really tapped into it as a teenager, but it wasn't until really the pandemic was really what got me back. Always knew, like, spent my summers shucking corn, picking corn, peas, beans, pecans, watermelons at my grandma's house during the summers, right? So those are the things that we know. Those are the things, like, my grandmother could take a piece of a plant and grow amazing things. But anyway, I always knew I had it in me and was always interested. However, never took the time. And so once I moved to this house here in Columbia, my house faces a total of 8 houses. So that's how big my backyard is. And the woman that lived here before me was a master gardener. And so as she had all of these Japanese maples and all of these different things, different trees, she was known as the shady lady as a master gardener here in Columbia. But what we decided to do was try to grow my own food. Now, let me tell you, I had some issues with my thyroid, right? So I had some issues with breathing and all these other things, and my doctor had suggested that I change my diet. So I went on a quest to try to grow my own food. Now, mind you, I have family and friends that are all farmers, so I can get the farm, the foods, fresh vegetables that I wanted, but I wanted to try in my own soil. So I did take a master gardener program here. And as healing for myself, I started putting my own hands in the soil. Plus, I homeschooled my kids. So I was like, oh, they were out of school here for the pandemic. And so I was like, well, maybe I can do this and teach them. And little did I know, putting my hands in the soil taught me, right? So for a person, I'm a 20-year-old, I'm 45 now, but I'm a 20-year education veteran. So I stayed in the classroom, used to do school gardens at my schools, but I never brought any of that home. And it also showed how impatient I was. You look at the beautiful magazines and things and you want your yard to look a certain way, or you want this garden to look a certain way. And it really took time. It also took money, but it took effort and knowledge, right? So you had to understand the lighting and all of that. But in sowing a seed and in my own healing, it taught me to slow down, to ask questions, and also not to be afraid. Sometimes we start things and start sowing seeds and searching for perfection immediately, when really growing food is a process in our own connection, right, to land and what we do, how we move, right, and understanding it. So 3 years in, I'm growing my own stuff, not being perfect on everything, not getting the huge harvest all the time, but getting a pretty decent harvest and getting working with community gardens and other schools and local farmers. I got hired on as Girl Trek for program innovation to start some new things. So lately I've been working with farmers, but the thing that which got me through with the pandemic, was the therapy by having my hands in the soil. What did it mean? What did it mean for me? How did it transform me into being more patient and not being so rushed, and being intentional, and taking a time to pay attention to Mother Earth, right? Sometimes we have our own ideas of what the picture looks like, but really we have to pay attention to our surroundings. And so time to slow down. So I knew that there was something, it was like beyond herbalism. My grandmother was a root worker and a doula. I wanted to know, how could this help other women in a way that and children in a way that it didn't have to be so technical, but at the same time, it could be therapeutic to move, right? And it didn't mean that it needed to have all the colors of the rainbows to grow, but it could even just be one plant or several, putting something in the ground and trusting that process and nurturing it the same way that we do our bodies, right? So therapeutic horticulture. So you have to excuse me because I have my notes here and sometimes I can get, Sister Ote knows I can get carried away and talk about one thing and not even give you all of that I want to share. But therapeutic horticulture, right? The purpose to promote health and healing through creating positive connections between plants and people, number one. And then horticulture therapy programs. There are some that are registered horticulture therapists. So there's difference. So you have registered horticulture therapists. Those are people that register to do that. They have a specific certificate to do that. And then there is therapeutic horticulture, which is more of an inclusive term, one that I was practicing in my backyard. So two different things, horticulture therapists, and then there is therapeutic horticulture, all right? So on my end, I just want to talk about the therapeutic horticulture piece, where anyone who is receptive to engagement with plants, that is, and if it's therapeutic to you, then that is what it is, therapeutic horticulture, right? Specific to people who have experienced challenges in their life or due to a condition. For example, the pandemic was a perfect example of how, since the world was quote unquote closed, how we had to navigate within our spaces and how we felt by watching news or even just with so much death around us, leaning to plants for life, if you will, right? And so people who are served by therapeutic horticulture, and I'm gonna run this list: mental illness, health challenges, intellectual and developmental disabilities, acquired brain injury, memory impairment, experiences of grief or trauma, people in confined situations. So we have people that may be in hospitals or prisons, or people restricted to residences, right? And then marginalized folks, whether it's gender identity, race or religion, social or economic factors, and age. So it's a broad, more inclusive term when we think of therapeutic horticulture. Where is it practiced? So when you look at, I know here on the East Coast, we have a lot of our residential facilities, whether it's medical facilities, vocational, our retirement homes, they're focusing a lot on gardening. And we do have, like, one of our juvenile detention centers, they actually have their own farm out here. And they're finding that as opposed to confining people to smaller spaces, that the healing lies in the land, right? So you have your community engagement programs, your businesses, your nonprofits, and senior centers, things like that. There's a quote that says, nature does not hurry, but everything is accomplished, right? So as we think of all of the things that we have to do in our day-to-day life, right? Horticulture, therapeutic horticulture is more on the focus of how can we work in sync as opposed to working against, right? And that's really, it's almost, instead of resistance, it's just almost like a surrender, if you will. Knowing what you know and moving within that in the season, eating with the season. And also to properly, there are program models to this that meets the needs of everyone, right? So with seniors or those with some type of physical disability, it's higher raised beds. For someone who, or kids that may deal with some type of other disability, it could be, you know, textures or smells, right? So all of those things, it's almost like how we do the aromatherapy. So working with herbs for smells, right? So there are three components to therapeutic horticulture. So it's therapeutic, vocational, and health and wellness. So therapeutic is focused more on the physical, mental, and psychological outcomes. Vocational is focused on work-related skills and outcomes. And then health and wellness is focused on the overall well-being, right? So with our therapeutic models, you'll see more of those in like residential sites, medical sites, school programs for children, community gardens, farms, nonprofits. So it's focused more on treating conditions that may impede or reduce functioning. And they say normal functioning, but what's normal? But functioning, period, right? And emphasizes strengths of individuals to address desired outcomes. Certain features, for example, learning services with folks with traumatic brain injury, right? So it could be a repetitive action. So, you know, let me show you how to use this hand shovel to create this hole. And that's a skill that they can develop over time, right? So that's one thing. How like in residential centers, they're planting vegetables and things so that they can be shared with other residents, right? So that's more of a therapeutic model. But the goal is increased muscle strength. So for those that may have some type of inability to move, working more towards getting their hands and their muscles moving. It's not just up here, but it's also the muscles, getting to move in therapy that way, improving blood pressure, pain tolerance, more physical activity, right? So we have in the botanical garden here, they have something called the farm at Penny Lane, right? And so it's a farm for working with folks with mental health diagnosis. And they have weekly horticulture therapy sessions, and it's free for folks to stop by so that they can they have like 4 seasons of horticultural activities. So then that way they're referred by a clinician, but their illness is not focused. It's not hyper focused on their illness or disability. It is more focused on the plants to move to show what you can do, right? So it shows with the physical challenges that some people face, and even mental, that in 20 years, folks of that may have those types of battles or struggles physically or mentally, they die 20 years earlier than the rest of the population. But what they're finding is with these folks that put their hands in the soil, it increases the life expectancy for them. That's based on the science that they have found, right? So because it promotes the physical activity, they're in community, they're gathering a skill, engaging in a skill, and promoting healthy lifestyles. So also in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is not too far from here, they have a children's center where they focus for like long-term chronic health challenges. And so they have indoor and outdoor gardens. So it's really like what I wanted to say overall as I try to go through all of these is it's more inclusive, and it's not a how much can we harvest, but it is how much can we work in sync with nature? How can we get our bodies moving in its natural form without having to go to the gym to lift weights? These are all things with natural resistance that everyone can do to build their body, right? So also when we think about vocational, right? And so we think about vocational training. I used to work for a center called Babcock Center, where I worked with folks that had serious brain or spinal injuries. And we had to take them to the vocational center to do small jobs, but it was repetitive. And then that way, once they gained the skill, they could move on to the next. And I did that for like 4 years, but it was beautiful how hard they worked. And you might look at it and be like, what do you mean putting soil in this cup is hard? But for someone sitting in a wheelchair and to control their movement to get that dirt in the cup, right? And it's small things like that, that even at home, that hand movement, the control of it is huge. And sometimes some of the clients would not even, it'd take like 1.5 years, 2 years just to get that to happen, right? So you have long-term, you have short-term, and then also competitive, because there's some that have higher level of skills. And so you have those that started their own beds, and maybe it's just understanding the spatial difference, right? And it's like, you can use this ruler to plant this seed, make sure that they're a foot apart or things like that. And then with service. So this doesn't have to happen like, of course, if you need more assistance, it can be something that's referred by a doctor or something like that, or at schools. Some of the education sites has it for those with different needs, special needs, but at the same time, at home. And as we think about the things that we as adults go through, I'm a mother of two, and the daily stressors that we go through. And when we look at it in a clinical site, that's one thing, but when we're home, it's just being outside and getting that fresh air, getting that quiet moment away from a computer, a phone, and actually listening and paying attention to something to nurture it to grow. And that's really, I knew my mental health improved, right? I was anxious, anxiety filled. And some of it had to do with my thyroid, but it was like I was always staying busy, and I didn't understand why I couldn't sleep at night, or why was I always nervous, or, why was I not calm enough? And spending time out there, it forces you to slow down. It forces you to pay attention. And everything doesn't have to be noise and loud. I love listening to my birds now, and then you're even more cognizant of what's going on around you, because sometimes we get so distracted by all the distractions, we learn how to function in distraction, right? So we get out there and we're used to silence, but we're paying attention as to, even like, I'm in the South, so it ain't nothing for a snake to creep up on me anytime. Not that they're coming to get me, but like I think I had done a post on the Girl Trek Gardeners one time. I was gardening and into the gardening, and I sat up and I looked around and I saw one snake coming from one direction and one coming from behind. And I was about to, matter of fact, I did trip up, y'all, because I was trying to get away. However, this hawk just swooped down and scooped one, and it was gone. Pretty much I was safe. But what I'm saying is, it's those things that we don't pay attention to. We don't know what's even in our own backyards. And even the seed sharing and learning to grow different things and where they came from. Y'all, the learning outside is just humongous, right? And so sometimes it's just trying. I've learned a lot from Sister Ote and things that she has shared in the group. But the biggest thing for me is to not be afraid. That's the biggest thing for me, because sometimes, as we all do, we try to work in perfection. And none of us are perfect, actually, but we try to work in perfection to get that beautiful plant and do all these things, when it's really about nurturing, which is in comparison to our bodies as well. We will not get healthy until we pay attention and follow the signals. Why is my head hurting? Why is my eyes burning? Why is all of that together? So that's where the plant care and what we're doing outside in nature, and that care out there, is also representative of the care of our bodies as well. And so, just this tending the soil and the nutrients in the soil, the same way of feeding our bodies, right? And I was listening to, it was a nutritionist, where she was talking about how beans and legumes, and how the proteins within them, right? But then when we think about like our beans and our peanuts and things that are nitrogen fixers in the soil, and it's like, whoa, so they fix the soil, but they also help us too. So it's like in relation to understanding what it does for the soil, what it does for our body. And so if we see our body as the soil, and then also the water that we drink. So the slowdown, the appreciation, the listening, the knowing that what we do in the soil can translate to that cousin that battles depression. And I'm not going to lie, myself that has battled depression, but also to understand the different programs that can benefit those that may have specific needs physically or mentally within their schools, and being brave enough to be on your school improvement council or city, participate in your city council to understand the importance of why gardens, community gardens and school gardens are so important, and why we should engage in these things, because it benefits not only just us, but our future, y'all. So as we think of our kids and what they, how they're going to move forward and appreciate this earth, this land, this soil, it is imperative that we begin now. And as we heal our bodies, and Mother Earth is always healing itself if we just sit down somewhere and allow her to heal, but learning how to be better servants to ourselves, to each other, and the earth. I think that's my overall spill on therapeutic horticulture. It's really what you make it. It's really what you make it. But if you do want to get certification in there, there are plenty of certifications out there. But the way I see it, especially like my grandmother and my grandfather and great and on back, they knew how to do it. They knew how to do it, and they knew, they weren't afraid to try, and they paid very close attention to their bodies and to the soil, right? And so that is where I think that it's just in my blood to tune back into that. It's for my healing and for my health and for the future. So I hope that gave you it's a very broad overview, y'all, but if you're definitely interested in therapeutic horticulture or horticulture therapy, tune in, especially if we have any educators in the building. We definitely need more of it in our schools, especially, as we lose some of our programming to support students that need assistance, but also even within our communities, we got to learn how to be more in ritual, more in community together, should I say.
Christina, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. I appreciate you making the time to be with us. I know that you're traveling and actually working
Yes.
on today. And so I wanted you to come, and I wanted the beta students to have an opportunity to hear, because it's going to be some work. They may be chomping at the bit, they're ready to dig. They think they're ready to dig, but you think you're ready to dig, but I know, praise God. But I want to, make sure that they get a full embrace, they're very intentional. I'm going to teach them and guide them and coach them, around the basic fundamentals on urban gardening in community. But we are unique in that we are a beta group. So these things that they are learning, like the syllabus in particular, they're able to give input so that we can improve this, the experience. This is be my third or maybe third year, I think, teaching it, but we now have a new document, and we've able to receive outside support, to create these documents to make my time more available and accessible, and your time as well. So I appreciate you so much. We have the two primary components I was speaking in the beginning for the beta group. In addition to the science of urban gardening, we are they're going to receive information around, land sovereignty, land stewardship, local food sovereignty, building community wealth. You may not be able to get rich growing in your backyard, but you can reduce your grocery bill. You can reduce the expense to drive to the grocery store to get those things that you're able to grow in your backyard or in a community garden. And so before I go on forward with more information around the beta group, because today is the second of two orientations for those who are interested in participating in the urban garden group coaching experience. Do you have any questions for Christina, because I want her to be able to go on about her day today. And for those who are here that maybe are from Girl Check, I see you, Kiru, and some others that may not want to stay for the orientation piece. I would like Christina to now respond to some questions, and I'm going to mute myself and let her do. Just maybe raise your hand and we can call on you like that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't see your name, but I see your hat and the beard.
Montague.
Yes,
All right.
you, Adair Connolly. Hopefully, I don't know why I just said my middle name, so everybody forget the middle. Montague. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing. That was very informative. And I just wanted to comment and say that I've seen a lot of what you're saying, even just working in the forest, as a herbalist. I know a lot of us have seen ourselves as separate from nature, like going into nature, this sort of thing. Don't step on the flowers, don't disturb anything. And in working closer with that ecosystem, just kind of learning that, no, we are nature, and that in nature, there are creatures of disturbance that disturb soil, that do knock trees down, that do those sorts of things. But the key is that they do it in ways that make the forest better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so like getting to that point where we're able to move in boldness and not so much tiptoeing around like, oh, I don't want to hurt nature, but having so much knowledge and so much understanding rhythm, because the rhythm in visiting a same place over and over again, will show you if you're a medicinal part of that ecosystem or poisonous by visiting those same places, and I just really wanted to comment on that and just say it's really beautiful that you're pouring into that therapeutic aspect, because I've seen people say, wow, I've never felt so at home just outside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even in Colorado, we only have 4 poisonous plants out here, 4 kill you dead lethal plants. And once we're able to properly identify those 4 lethal plants, those 4 guardians, it's almost like you have a key now. Because now you properly identify those 4 plants, and now anything else is open.
Correct.
And you're no longer
Correct.
going around. It's just like, oh, I don't know what that is, but I know it's not one of those 4 kill you dead plants. You know what I
Right.
mean? So anyway,
Right.
I'm just geeking out with you. I'm just really appreciating what you had to share. And yeah.
I love that. I'm so glad that you came on and you said that, because it's also like those plants that we call it poke salad, and it's always on the side of the road, but our grandparents used to stop and dig them up like greens and cook them like greens. But it can be, if it's not cooked properly, it is also poisonous. But it's like understanding and remembering, should I say, and remembering, and then just giving thanks for what we receive on our own without even, we didn't sow the seed ourselves. It's there, but understanding it. So that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. And just to piggy a little bit off what you just said, my great grandmother said they wouldn't have survived without a plant called peppergrass that grew close to the river. They didn't have nothing. She said they were so poor that they would get a leather boot and make broth. And they would go and harvest this herb and cook it like greens, just like you were saying. And it kept them alive. So then it changes that connection to your ancestors, saying, yo, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for that plant. So now that plant is my ancestor too. So it's deep. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I love your energy. Thank you.
Grateful to have you here. Someone else? See your hand, Malik?
Uh-oh, sis, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Gotta mute yourself, babe.
Oh, I put the camera on, but didn't. I was saying that my name is Maylia, and I'm an urban community gardener here in Denver. And this is actually the first time I'm hearing about this topic. So I wanted to know, are there sites you would recommend, or people like we could follow to learn a little bit more about therapeutic horticulture?
Yes, and actually I'm in school and it's online, so it's available everywhere if you want to check. For other programs, I'm unsure, but this specific one is tied to the Botanical Garden here in North Carolina. So it's North Carolina State University. And it's available to anyone, anywhere, and it's all online. You can check it out. That's the one that I went with just because I knew that the Botanical Garden was close to me and I could visit, plus they host therapeutic programs there, so I would be able to witness. But I'm pretty sure, you know, with you all being in Colorado, y'all probably do have some other organizations and colleges that support, but yeah, that's where I am right now. But yeah, it's a lot of the extension services, they're starting to pick it up now, local extension services, and partnering, like Clemson University is starting one now. They haven't kicked it off yet, but yeah, check your local extension services. Most of them will be joining in, and I see that there is a link now. There we go. But thanks, Kia, and thanks, Anita, for sharing those. But definitely check out North Carolina State University. That's where I am, and I love it because we have you know, the classes are about an hour a day, and it's really slow, but at the same time, we're able to venture out in whatever area that we'd like and test it out. So
Yeah, thank you for that.
thank you, sis.
I want to say that we're going to receive a question, I believe, from Kia as well. But I started gardening as a remedy for severe clinical depression.
Mhm.
So just to throw that in there, how I came to be this, you know, it just has to be, you know, whatever. But I started, you know, when I was researching a way to help myself.
Yeah.
That came out to be a way. And there are a few people in the beta program who have indicated that they are choosing to participate for the opportunity to be outside, you know, to be in the community, to be, you know, they'll say, you know, put their hands in the soil. And so I thank you. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I had someone speak specifically to that piece. Sister Kia, you have, I can't, so Kia, so what y'all see behind me, thank you so much, Christina, for everything that you brought to us today. And Kia's going to ask a question for you, but what you see behind me is a picture of calendula, and Kia is going to be one of our speakers in July. That is the medicinal plant for this beta group is the calendula, but she's probably going to ask a question related to your topic, so I'm gonna mute.
Hey,
Yeah.
Kia.
How do you do it?
How are you, sis?
Good. I'm in the shop. I should probably call you later and give you a video tour.
Yes, please.
Yes, I have so many plants around here right now. You're going to love it. But so my question is, just because I have some familiarity with you, and you did like touch a little bit about Gullah Geechee culture and how you're like where you are right now. Like you tell me the most amazing things. And yeah, I guess my question is the cultural one about some of what you're facing in your community, some of what your kin is facing, and some of the stuff goes so deep. And yeah, when we touch plants, we get that instantaneous thing of a season and what we can do. But yeah, I would love if you can like touch on, I guess, the timeline of how this is therapeutic for you and your community. That's a big question, but
Yeah, but it's a beautiful one. It's a beautiful one because you definitely know my heart when it comes to Gullah Geechee culture, y'all. And here on the coast, if no one has ever heard of Gullah Geechee culture, here on the coast, it's of South Carolina. It's from Savannah, Georgia, on up to the coast of North Carolina was the entry point for many of enslaved ancestors to hit. To come from Africa there. And because of the different cultures and languages, officially as those that stayed in the Carolinas and on the coast, it was a language that was developed, Gullah Geechee, West African, English, it's all a blend to be able to communicate. But the thing was, they were specifically brought on the coast due to rice cultivation because the weather and the temperament in the land was somewhat similar, right? And so indigo, rice, crabbing and shrimping, it's very dear. But if you ever seen sweetgrass earrings and basket sewing, which we call it here, but it's basket weaving, and it was the rice that, you know, the baskets that they used to harvest the rice and things of that nature. That's the culture along the Sea Islands. It's 24 Sea Islands, one of which I was born on. And on these Sea Islands, everyone loves the name, everyone loves the culture. However, the land is being taken. So because at the time, The Gullah Geechee folks could not swim. We still are working on getting everyone to learn how to swim. So they were placed on islands so that they would never leave, right? And they cultivated those islands, and it was seen as a place that you could not, it was hard to farm, but they learned how to farm that land. So essentially, that culture has been there for years, and now it's turning into golf courses and being highly developed as tourist areas, but they still want to keep the name because Gullah Geechee is what brings the folks. Everyone wants to hear the language, see the arts, do the indigo dyeing, the food, the culture, but don't want to preserve it. So right now we are trying to preserve the land. Now, of all this time, the sweetgrass has never been an issue. It has always regenerated, and it just kept producing and producing. Now that the developers have bought the land, we're seeing it disappear. And so now actually I'm working with a sister farmer here who has 44 acres and is now planting sweetgrass to preserve the culture to continue. And she's doing this alone because her family lost the land. So as we talk about when you see the mossy trees, or when you see the sweetgrass, or when you think of indigo, when you think of, gosh, the water out here, and we touch that soil, it's remembering. It's remembering. And so we have a lot of land being taken. So of right now, only 3% of Gullah Geechee people still own their land. And it was because as land was passed down, the deeds were not acknowledged, right? So now they're saying, oh, if you can't produce a deed, then it's ours. And so folks that have, my family has had their land. My family's land was 50 acres of it was given by Harriet Beecher Stowe. My great-great-great-grandfather was the coachman for Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. And so she gave my great-great-great-grandfather 50 acres. He was a slave, enslaved at that time, and she granted him 50 acres, and then he kept buying more. He actually was arrested for leading the revolt, during the Civil War. And then was freed again, and they tried to get the land. But since then, my family has been acquiring more and more. And as like my aunts and uncles, it was at 10 acres here. And so it was like, it was 15 of them, okay? And so they kept acquiring land and farming, and built a church and started sharing with more family, building stores, horses, cows, all of that. And thank goodness my family has kept the papers straight and the documents, but it was only because of Harriet Beecher Stowe and what she provided, right? So, but there are a lot of families who did not have that. During Reconstruction, folks down here were given land because they were supposed to, build their own. But because it was given and then taken back after Reconstruction, they said it was no deed. So then these folks have lost their land. And so only 3% of Gullah Geechee down here own their land. The rest has been taken over by golf courses and developers. And the funny thing is, with stores named like Gullah Geechee Tours or things like that, but no Gullah Geechee folks working. So right now we are working to teach our youth. We're dealing with heirs property here, but we're also getting more farmers, a coalition. We have the Gullah Geechee Farmer Coalition, to where we're all working, which is the work that I'm doing this weekend on through this week, to where we can work together and get our funds together to be able to save the land, but to also be able to grow to support the folks here. Although we're in the South and we produce a lot of food and have agriculture and all of that, it's access. It's not, there's no shortage of food, it's access to the food. Right. And so also a lot of our farmers that do produce, they don't get the sales. So we're working that as well, to where we're starting our own farmers markets and things of that nature to be able to sell the food. If you're ever on the East Coast, I hope that you all can come hang with me sometime, and then we can island jump because it's just bridges over to the next bridge, except for one. There is one that has been left alone. It's Defusky Island. You do have to take a rowboat to get there. And that is the one the one island that has been kind of left alone, although they have one golf course, but you do have to take a ferry boat as well over there as well. So please check it out, learn more about it. But also, and maybe Sister Ote can give you all my information, and maybe we can link up and I can take you on a tour of some farms here. We do farm to table dinners and things like that to fundraise here. But at the same time, pay attention to what's happening around you too, and to understand your community and what your ties or whatever the culture that is specific to your area, in supporting them as well, so that you can remember and that we can carry on this I shouldn't say tradition, but the love for the people that are native, especially indigenous peoples, you know what I'm saying? Understanding that culture so that we can even be more tied to the land, if you will. And that's therapeutic to me, because that's healing in itself too, when we can be together and understand each other and work better together to heal together. So thank you, Kia, for that question.
Such a beautiful spirit, such a beautiful spirit. And we will be talking about the experiences here in Colorado as it relates to the Arapaho, the Ute, and the Cheyenne, and some of the tragedies and things around land grabbing as we move through the curriculum. So, Christina, thank you very much for your help today. I apologize. That will be the last question for Christina today, because I need to spend this last 15 minutes talking specifically about the Beta group and what we're going to be doing as we're going forward. I trust and hope that Christina has inspired you, I hope that the things that you have heard from James last week, for those who were present or saw the video, and from Christina this week, that you will be inspired to, be a food and or flower producer, that you will do it for the reasons that James mentioned last week, for your own mental and physical wellness, as Christina shared with us today. For some of you that know me, I have a long vision that the gardens that I manage would be a very intentional therapeutic space, that the pergola would have, flowers that have fragrances, they will be very intentional, medicinal shrubs and things like that. I'll talk about that more in another moment. Christina, you're welcome to stay. I love you. Appreciate you so much. It's very easy to get in touch with Christina. All the ladies, of course, are welcome to join the Girl Trek Garden Club Facebook group. I'll make sure that you all are connected with that information. Christina, did you have any last words, anything else you want to say to us or with us?
I'm just in admiration of you and the work that you're doing, but also everyone that is here. This is the way we learn. This is the way we move forward. This is beautiful. And if you do want to reach me via email, if you ever find yourself on the East Coast, please reach out. But I thank you, Sister Ote, for having me. I thank you all. I'm headed to a sweetgrass farm. So I hope you all are well. Take care of yourselves.
Christina, drop your email in the chat before you
I
log
sure
off,
will.
please. Okay, thank you.
Will.
Okay, so let me get to this. We have a PowerPoint want to get to. We move through our process here. Let's see, where are we? Mr. Ote. I thank you all so much for your patience. As I mentioned, that's the number one lesson, the first lesson you're gonna hear that a lot. And our gardening experience is to practice patience. Sometimes patience is defined as enduring under pressure. And so we're going to be patient as we move through this process, because we're not trying to be in a rush, because I want you to be confident and competent, right? Gardeners, that's the goal. So we're going to take our time. So this is what we saw today. For those of you who, let me see, get it here. Let's look at my little activities here. Saw this, make sure you're in the right place. How do you like my captions down there?
Love it. Love it.
I'm teasing myself. So we had a chance to hear and share it from you about your favorite root vegetable. We appreciate that. And I do save the chat. That's going to support some of the work that we're going to be doing going forward. So the question now is, what is this hybrid group urban gardening experience? Well, the answer actually is you're going to review orientation part 1, and you're going to review the syllabus review to get that more complete information. And that information should have come to you in the email. If it has not, please put your email in the chat at this time. Okay, so I am pleased to say that some of you have responded to the registration process. I have some that have there. So there's 2 parts to the registration. You are completing your registration application, and you're completing the very first Digging Deeper assignment. And in that assignment, we're asking you, what is your root plant? What is your fruiting plant? And what is your leafy green? So for those who have not been here and have not watched the videos, you're receiving the very first assignment. Okay, this is the very first step in all that we do in the gardening world, and the step that will continue throughout is planning. So first you want to think about what, because this is designed and I'll say programmed for beginning gardeners, I'm asking you only for 3 plants. Just those 3. We're going to have an opportunity to work on a Jamboard document together. For those of you that don't know what a Jamboard is, don't get uptight. It's not difficult. It'll be easy to do. I shouldn't say it'll be easy to do. I should say, I believe it'll be easy to do. Somebody may say, she said it's going to be easy and it's hard for me. So I wanted to just put this up again to remind you that that assignment, that you do have that piece, you do have that particular things to do. For those of you that have completed the registration, you received an email that congratulating you on that. You will have also received the hybrid, not the hybrid, the digital or the virtual syllabus and the digital journal. Okay, be sure that you watch the video around the syllabus. Hopefully that will answer any questions that you may have. The registration is open, so make sure that you take advantage to click those links, respond to the questions. Yes, you will notice that the Digging Deeper is going to ask. There's some questions that are repeating, but they are 2 separate documents. The Digging Deeper, I am using that to help collect some data around what it is that we're doing in the program. So I appreciate you taking the time to complete both of those documents. Keep track of the time. Now, what I want to show you, okay, good, it's 2:22. I have 2 videos that I want to share with you today. The first video I want to share, I'm going to stop that. First video that I'm going to share is around how do you research. I was so excited. One of the beta students that was there yesterday, she said, I've been doing my research, and when I researched this and I researched that. And so she don't know, but that put her on my really good list. You all are all actually on my good list already. That put on a really, really good list. That made me excited. But also it reminds me of when we're asking a question in the social media group. You can ask a question, and 5 people can respond to that question with 8 different answers. So how do you know which answer is the correct answer? And so we're going to watch a video. Those of you that have gone to graduate school, or you had a science undergrad degree, you would have learned about this particular method. And it's called the CRAP method. And you'll see why we call it that in just a moment. So just let me pause first. Does anyone have any questions before I keep going forward? Okay, this is for you, Mama, to help you be supported in your researching.
Evaluating sources. By the end of this video, you will gain an understanding of the importance of evaluating sources and asking questions throughout the research process, and how to apply the CRAP evaluation model when evaluating all sources, whether it's a website or a
Are you all seeing this?
If you could maybe maximize it or,
Okay.
because we're getting like the ads and kind of like the other stuff at the bottom. Click the big square on the right-hand side at the bottom. That should make it, that's full screen. Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
peer-reviewed publication. Information is all around us and manifests in a variety of forms. It can be overwhelming at times trying to decide what information we should consider authoritative and use to make informed decisions. Well, welcome to the CRAP test. Yes, that is correct, the CRAP test. This evaluation model was developed by librarians at California State University as a way to assist students to remember the criteria for evaluating sources. Each one has a series of questions you should be asking yourself when evaluating a selected source. Currency. Always ask yourself, when was the information created or published? When was it last updated? If it's an online source, are the links still functional? Always think about the requirements for your assignment. Did your instructor ask you to look at information published within a particular time frame, or are older and authoritative sources acceptable? Relevance. How well does the information relate to your topic or research question? Who is the intended audience? Is the content level or the language used appropriate for inclusion in your assignment? Have you compared and contrasted this source with others to ensure its relevance? Authority. Where is the information coming from? Who published it? Is it expert information? Does the URL provide you with any clues about the source, the author, or the organization? Ask yourself about the author. Who are they? Are they an expert in their field? What makes them an expert? Educational attainment, professional experience, social position, or unique experiences? Who is it that's speaking, and whose voice might be missing? It's important to remember that authority is constructed and contextual. Accuracy. Is the source reliable and known for providing accurate information? Does the information that they are providing match the other sources that you've read? What sources are they using to support their argument? Are those sources authoritative? And finally, the purpose. Why was the research conducted? What was its purpose? Is it original research or is it a commentary meant to persuade you? Can you identify the central argument? Did the author succeed? Again, what sources did they use? Are the sources balanced or are they relying on a particular school of thought? Is the language balanced and free of bias? As you go forward in the research process, try to use these principles in evaluating the sources you encounter. Remember to keep asking questions.
Okay, all right. So some of you that received your journal, that information in that video may look familiar to you. For those of you that had the virtual journal and the hard copy journal, basically what I want to tell you in these last few minutes as relates to in the research is choose to look for academic sources. Here's one example that I'll leave you. So people believe that it's common knowledge that if you use pine leaves, that it will cause your soil to become acidic. However, the nerd that I am, I looked for a study that proved that, because you can Google that and see, articles and blogs and people saying that. The scientific study very specifically disputes that. So I just want to encourage you as we move forward, and you will receive a 15 minutes to win it. Be sure that you take a moment to look at the 15 minutes to win it. Those of you that have your hard copy journals, look through the journals, look through the virtual journals, start making notes wherever that you can. We have one more speaker actually next week who Caitlin's going to be talking about the foundation of the, I'll say the ideology of this program. And then we're in it to win it. After that moment, be ready to start thinking about, not even thinking about, we're going to start acting on getting your seeds, when you're going to show up to the labs. I'm trying not to inundate you with emails. There is a Facebook group that will be able to provide you support that you will be invited to once I receive all of your registration information. We are down to the last minute. One thing that you're able to do as we, so the moments that we have guests will be like this, where I'll just have a few moments at the end. So just, clap your hands to help the energy move through your body. Be sure that you drink your water so that you all will be able to gather the information as easily as you can. Last thing I want to say is please take a moment to type in the chat one word that describes your experience today. Whatever that word is, if you feel confused, if you still feel anxious, if you feel excited, if you feel inspired, whatever that one word is, please take a moment to type that in the chat. And that's how we're going to, somebody's, see a lot of messages in the chat. Oh, I see you. I see excited, grateful, happy. Appreciate you all. Blessed. Gratitude. Inspired, excited, happy. I see another grateful. I appreciate you all. Check your email. Some of you received an email letting you know what parts of the registration that we might still need. We're back next Sunday, same time, different link. So be sure that you come to here from your Google invite. Third Sunday is a link. Fourth Sunday is a link. You have something for me, Montague?
I just want to say thank you. Have a good one.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you all being here. I'm letting y'all slide without showing the camera. Let y'all slide this week. Appreciate you, Montague. Show us your face. Hey, May. All right. Appreciate you. Oh, let me just say one last thing as we are logging off. I see you, Anita. I did confirm with her today that we will be going to Aniche Farm, which is the Black-owned farm in Bennett, Colorado. It's going to be an activity. Where are you? She's telling me somewhere else. You're muted.
It's a deer trail.
Deer Trail. That's what it says on the website. She's in Deer Trail, Colorado. She has invited us out. We know the date. Check your syllabus. September 24th. We have to just work together the transportation. We're going to have a tour. She has animals. She has a greenhouse that you can walk around in. It's a hobby farm. But that is an activity that we're going to have. Like I said, we're working out the transportation. We're going to eat. Just make a early morning of it. It's going to be hot. So anyway, more on that later. Check your syllabus. I said, I just get too excited. I don't want to hang up. That may be one of the critiques that you all leave me is that 1 hour is not enough. But keep that in mind. I'm hanging up now. I will see you all next week. Bye. See you, Kevin.